The medical bay was silent except for the weak beeping of machines. The smell of metal and medicine filled the air. A young alien girl lay on the cold table, her skin pale and her eyes half closed. Tubes and wires surrounded her. But they did nothing to help. The doctors stood around her, whispering to each other. Their voices were low, but their words were cruel. "She will not survive," one of them said. "Her body is too weak." Another added, "It is better to let her go. There is no hope." The alien girl heard them, though her mind was fading. Their words cut deeper than any wound. She wanted to cry, but even tears refused to come. She was too weak to speak, too weak to move. She could only listen as the doctors turned their backs and walked away. The machines beeped slower, the sound like a fading heartbeat. The girl's small chest rose and fell with heavy effort. The lights in the room flickered as if even the station itself did not care. She thought of her family, but there was no one left. She thought of her world, but it had been destroyed long ago. She closed her eyes, waiting for the end. Among the people watching, hidden in the corner, stood one human. His name was not important yet, but his eyes burned with anger. He had seen many cruel things in the galaxy, but this was different. This was not war, not battle. This was simple neglect, a choice to let an innocent child die. He clenched his fists as the doctors left. He wanted to shout at them to force them to try again. But he knew it was useless. In this place, no one cared about one weak alien child. The galaxy was cold and this girl was just another forgotten life. But he could not look away. Something inside him refused to let her go. He stepped closer, his boots echoing on the floor. He stared at the small figure on the bed. She looked broken, fragile, like a dying flame. For a moment he hesitated. Who was he to change her fate? What could one human do when even advanced alien medicine had given up? He almost turned to leave. But then her eyes opened. They were weak, trembling, but alive. She looked at him, not with anger or fear, but with silent pleading. In that single glance, she asked a question without words. "Will you also leave me?" The human froze. His heart pounded. He had faced enemies stronger than machines. He had fought battles across the stars, but nothing had ever shaken him like this look. A look that begged for life, a look that asked for hope. He bent down, whispering softly so no one else could hear. "I see you, little one. You are not alone." The alien girl's lips moved, but no sound came. Her breath rattled like broken glass. The human reached for her hand. It was cold, thinner than his own. He held it gently, as if afraid it would break. At that moment, the decision formed in his mind. If no one else would fight for her, then he would. He did not know how. He did not know if he would succeed, but he could not let her die forgotten. The door hissed open again. A nurse entered, her face stern. "Leave her," she said. "She is beyond saving. You waste your time." The human's eyes narrowed. He wanted to argue, but he knew words would not change their hearts. He released the girl's hand slowly, pretending to obey. He turned away, walking toward the exit, but as he reached the door, he looked back one last time. The girl's eyes followed him, weak, but still holding that same silent question. He felt the weight of it in his chest, heavier than any burden he had carried. Before outside the medical bay, the corridors of the station were alive with noise. Traders shouted, machines roared. Life continued as if nothing had happened. No one knew. No one cared. One small child was being left to die inside those cold walls. The human stopped in the middle of the corridor. His hands shook. His mind screamed at him to walk away, to let it go. But his heart refused. He remembered battles where he had seen soldiers die without help. He remembered friends who were abandoned. He had sworn never to let it happen again. He turned back. His steps were quick, his jaw set in iron resolve. The doctors and nurses could say what they wished. The galaxy could laugh at him, but he would not let her end this way. Back in the medical bay, the girl's breath grew weaker. Darkness crept into her vision. She felt her life slipping away like sand through fingers. Her heart whispered that no one would come, that she was truly alone. Then, the door hissed again. A shadow entered, tall and firm. The girl opened her eyes just enough to see it was him, the human. He had returned, her heart fluttered, a spark of hope where none remained. She could not speak. She could not thank him. But her eyes said everything, and in his eyes she saw not pity but promise. He stepped to her side, whispering with steady voice, "If they will not save you, then I will." The machines beeped slowly, the lights flickered, the doctors were gone, the galaxy had turned its back, but for the first time, the girl felt something new. Hope. The human stood in the shadows of the corridor, his back against the cold wall. His hands trembled not from fear, but from the weight of the choice burning inside him. He had returned to the girl's side once, but now he asked himself, what next? Doctors had already given up. They had labeled her as hopeless, a waste of time. In their eyes, she was not worth the effort, and in the vast galaxy, their word was law. If the doctor said she would die, then everyone believed it, but he was human. And humans did not always follow the rules of the galaxy. His mind wrestled with doubt. How can I save her when they failed, he thought. He had no advanced tools, no alien machines, no special knowledge of her kind. All he had was his will, his hands, and his heart. Yet when he closed his eyes, he saw her face, the way she looked at him, those weak eyes full of silent pleading. That look haunted him. That look chained him. That look demanded an answer. He pushed himself away from the wall and walked with quick steps. He entered the medical bay once more, ignoring the nurse's warning. The girl was still there, her body smaller than ever, her breaths shallow. He stood beside her bed, his jaw set with grim resolve. A doctor returned and frowned. "You again?" The doctor muttered. "Why do you care, human? She is nothing but a failed experiment of nature. Let her die." The human's anger boiled. He took a step forward, his voice low but steady. "She is alive, she has a chance, and I will not let you decide her fate." The doctor laughed, shaking his head. "Do you think you know better than us? We studied medicine for years. We healed entire armies, but this one is beyond saving. Leave her." The human's fists tightened. He wanted to punch the smug face in front of him, but violence would solve nothing here. The galaxy already saw humans as reckless. If he fought, they would lock him away and the girl would surely die. So instead he leaned closer to the doctor and whispered, "Then I will save her myself." The doctor's eyes widened, then narrowed. "You will doom yourself," he said coldly, "and her too." The human ignored him. He pulled the thin blanket tighter around the girl. Her skin was ice cold. He could feel how close death was. He knew he had to move fast. That night, when the medical bay grew quiet and the lights dimmed, the human returned. He moved carefully, his footsteps silent. He disabled the nearest camera with a quick tool from his pocket. Then he approached her bed. The girl opened her eyes weakly. Her lips trembled as she whispered, barely audible, Why are you here?" Her voice was broken, almost gone, yet the human heard her clearly. He bent closer and answered softly, "Because no one else will stay. Because you deserve a chance." Her small fingers twitched, as if trying to hold his hand. He gently lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, fragile as a feather. Her head rested against his chest, and for the first time in days, she felt warmth. The machine screamed alarms as he disconnected her. Red lights flashed, but he was already moving. He ran through the corridors, guards shouting behind him. His heart thundered, but he held her tighter, refusing to stop. Down the steel stairways, past the endless halls, into the forgotten lower decks of the station. He finally reached a hidden chamber he had prepared long ago, a place no doctor would search. He laid her carefully on a small cot, breathing hard. Sweat dripped from his forehead. His lungs burned, but his resolve stood unbroken. The girl coughed. Weakly, her body shivered, her eyes opened halfway. She looked at him, her voice fragile. "You will get in trouble." "Why?" He knelt beside her, placing a hand on her forehead. "Because you are not a burden. Because you are not trash. Because you are alive. And that is enough reason for me." She stared at him, her lips curving just slightly. A faint smile, fragile but real, appeared on her face. For the first time, she felt someone saw her not as a failure, but as a living being. But the danger was not over. He had no medical knowledge. He had no alien machines to heal her. He only had his memory. And in that memory were the old ways of Earth, remedies passed down by his people long before the galaxy ever noticed them. He remembered herbs, teas, warmth, simple things that gave hope when hope was gone. His thoughts raced. Can such small things fight death itself? Outside, the sound of boots echoed faintly. Guards were searching. He knew they would not give up. Easily, if they found him, they would take the girl away again, and she would surely die. He had only one chance. He looked at her again, at the thin child who clung to life with the last thread of strength. He whispered with firm voice, "I do not know how, but I will save you." Her eyes closed slowly, but not in despair this time. In her silence, there was trust. The human sat beside her all night, keeping watch. His eyes never closed, his hands never left her. And in his heart, he made a silent vow, no matter what the galaxy said, no matter how hopeless it seemed, he would not abandon her. For he was human, and humans never gave up. The lower decks of the station were dark and silent. Pipes dripped water. The walls were rusted, and the air smelled of dust and oil. It was the perfect place to hide, but not the perfect place to heal. The human knew, and yet he had no choice. He laid the alien girl on the small cot. Her breath was shallow, each inhale a battle. Her thin chest rose and fell with painful effort. Her skin was colder now, almost lifeless. He pressed his hand against her forehead and felt the heat of fever burning through her fragile body. His heart raced. He had stolen her from the medical bay, but now came the harder part. He had to keep her alive, alone, without medicine, without doctors, without help. The girl's lips moved. Her voice was faint as a whisper. You should have left me." The human shook his head. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled as he spoke. "No, little one, I could not leave you. You still breathe. You still fight. As long as you fight, so will I." Her eyes glimmered. For a moment before closing again, that faint spark was enough to fuel his determination. He searched through his bag, pulling out scraps he had gathered from his travels. Old herbs, water purifiers, small bandages. Nothing advanced, nothing alien, just simple things he trusted. He remembered the stories of his grandmother back on Earth, how she healed with simple teas, with warmth, with patience. He boiled water in a small metal pot, mixing the herbs. The steam filled the room with a strange but soothing smell. He lifted the girl gently, pressing the cup to her lips. She coughed, the liquid spilling, but slowly, carefully, she swallowed. Minutes passed like hours. The girl's breathing steadied slightly, though her fever did not break. The human knew it was not enough. He had to do more. Footsteps echoed in the distance, heavy and sharp. Guards. They were searching. The alarms from the medical bay had surely alerted them. He pulled the blanket tighter around the girl, whispering, "Stay quiet, stay strong." He grabbed his small blaster, the metal cold in his grip. His ears strained for every sound. The boots grew closer. Then, silence. The guards must have passed. The hallway, for now, they were safe, but safety was a fragile thing. He knew it would not last. Every moment wasted meant the girl's life slipped closer to the edge. The girl stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She looked at him with confusion and weakness. Why? Help me. Why risk everything? He knelt beside her. His voice was soft but carried weight. Because life matters, even yours. Especially yours. They gave up on you, but I will not. Her lips trembled. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She had lived her short life believing no one cared. And yet here he was, a stranger, holding her life above his own. The human wiped the tear gently, his jaw tightening. "You are not alone anymore," he whispered. Time moved slowly. The fever grew worse. Her small body shook. Sweat covered her. The human worked desperately, cooling her head with wet cloth, feeding her small sips of tea, speaking to her even when she was too weak to reply. Outside, the sound of guards echoed again, louder, closer. The human's chest tightened. He knew they would not stop until they found her. If they did, they would take her back to the doctors who had already signed her death. He checked his weapon again, his hand steady now. He would fight if he had to. He would not let them touch her. Suddenly, the girl gasped. Her body stiffened. Her small hands gripped the blanket. Her breathing stopped for one terrible second. The human's heart froze. No, stay with me, he whispered harshly. He shook her gently, his voice desperate. Breathe, little one. Breathe. For a moment, silence filled the room, a silence heavier than death itself. Then, with a weak cry, she gasped again. Her chest rose, her body shuddered, her eyes opened slightly. The human exhaled, his shoulders sinking. He pressed his forehead to hers, whispering, "You are stronger than they know." But the moment made it clear. Time was against them. Every second counted, every delay could mean the end. The human lifted her again, wrapping her in the blanket. He strapped his bag tightly and held his blaster close. He could not stay hidden. Forever, the lower decks were only a temporary cage. If he wanted to save her, truly save her, he had to move. He looked down at her pale face, fragile yet alive, and spoke with quiet determination. "We will find a cure. I don't care how far I must go. I don't care what stands in my way. I will not let you die here." Her eyes flickered. A faint smile formed. For the first time, she believed him. The human stepped into the corridor, shadows stretching long. Danger followed every step. The galaxy itself seemed against him. But he carried her, as if she were the most precious treasure in existence. Behind them, guards shouted, lights flashed, the chase had begun. And as he ran, his heart burned with one truth. This was no longer just about survival. It was a race against time, a race that only a human's stubborn will could win. The human carried the girl through the endless corridors. His footsteps echoed softly, every sound threatening to give away their hiding place. Behind him, the noise of guards slowly faded. For now, they had escaped. But he knew it would not last. He found an abandoned chamber deep within the lower decks. Pipes lined the ceiling. Broken lights flickered weakly. It was damp, dirty, and far from safe. Yet it was all he had. He laid the girl gently on a makeshift bed of cloth. Her body was limp, her face pale. The fever still burned within her. He sat beside her, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. His heart ached at her weakness. His mind screamed with one question. How do I heal her? He searched through his small pack. Inside were only the simplest of things: old earth herbs, pieces of dried roots, small vials of clean water. To the galaxy, these items were useless, primitive, laughable, but to him, they were memories. Reminders of old cures passed down through generations. He remembered his grandmother's voice, soft yet wise. When medicine fails, sometimes nature whispers answers. The human clenched his jaw. He knew the galaxy called such things forbidden. Old remedies were considered dangerous, weak, even foolish. No alien doctor would ever trust them. Yet in this moment he had no other choice. He boiled water again, mixing herbs until the air filled with a bitter scent. The steam rose, filling the chamber with warmth. He lifted the cup to the girl's lips. She stirred weakly, her eyes half opening. "Drink," he whispered gently. At first she refused, her lips trembling. But slowly, with his patience, she swallowed. A small sip, then another. Her body shook as the warmth slid down her throat. For a moment he feared it would harm her, but then her breath grew steadier. Hours passed. The fever did not vanish, but her shaking slowed. Her face softened. She no longer looked as close to death as before. The human released a breath he had been holding for too long. The girl opened her eyes fully for the first time. Since he had taken her, her voice was weak yet clearer. You are strange. No one fights for me but you. You stay." The human smiled faintly, though his eyes carried shadows. "I stay because you are worth saving," he said softly. Her small hand moved, touching his arm lightly. Her fingers barely had strength, yet that touch felt like trust. But peace never lasted in the galaxy. A noise broke the silence, footsteps echoing outside. The human froze. He quickly dimmed the weak light, grabbing his blaster. He stood between the door and the girl, his body tense. Shadows passed, voices whispered. The guards were searching closer now. He held his breath, praying they would not open the door. After long moments, the footsteps faded. For now, they were safe again. The girl whispered, her voice shaking. "They will find us. You will die because of me." He shook his head firmly. "No, I live because of you. Saving you gives my life meaning." Her eyes filled with tears. She had never heard such words, never believed anyone could see her as more than a burden. Yet here he was, risking everything. The night stretched on. The human fed her small sips of the herbal brew. He wiped sweat from her brow. He spoke to her even when she drifted in and out of sleep, telling her stories of Earth, of green, forests, blue oceans, and skies filled with stars. She listened weakly, sometimes smiling, sometimes crying. In her fragile heart, hope began to grow. Hope she thought she would never feel again, but danger grew with every hour. The guards were not the only threat. Word spread fast in the station. Whispers of a human stealing a dying alien child reached the ears of hunters. Bounty hunters who cared for nothing but money. The human knew it. He could feel the storm gathering. He would not have long before someone came knocking. Still, he stayed with her. He focused on each moment, each breath she took. He worked tirelessly, using what little knowledge he had. Using herbs for fever, clean water for strength, soft words for courage. By morning, the fever began to break slightly. Her skin was less hot, her breaths less shallow. She opened her eyes and looked at him with something new. "Light. You saved me," she whispered faintly. He shook his head, brushing her hair gently. "No, little one. We saved you. You chose. To keep fighting, I only helped. For a brief moment, there was peace." The human felt pride in her strength. The girl felt safety in his presence. But then, a sound shattered it all. Metallic steps outside, heavier than before, not just guards, something worse. Hunters. The human's grip on his blaster tightened, his heart pounded. He knew what came next would decide everything. He could not run forever. He could not hide forever. If he wanted her to live, he would have to fight. The girl looked at him with fear. Her lips trembled. "They will take me." Again, he knelt beside her, his voice steady, his eyes sharp with resolve. "No, they will not. Not while I breathe." She believed him. Not because of his weapon, not because of his strength, but because of the fire in his eyes. A fire no alien, no doctor, no hunter could ever put out. And as the door rattled with the sound of someone trying to force it open, the girl's heart no longer felt abandoned. For in the human beside her she had found something she never thought possible. Hope. The door shook as metal hands tried to force it open. The human held his blaster tightly, standing between the girl and danger. His eyes never left the door, his heart steady even as the noise grew louder. The girl clutched the blanket, fear in her weak body. With a loud crack, the lock snapped. The door slid open, and 3 hunters stepped inside. Their armor was dark, their faces hidden behind glowing visors. Each carried weapons built for killing. Their voices were cold. "Step aside, human. Give us the girl. The doctors want her back. Alive or dead makes no difference." The human raised his blaster, his stance unshaken. His voice cut through the room like steel. "You will not touch her," the hunters laughed. The sound was cruel. "You cannot stop us, one man against the galaxy. Do you really think you can win?" The human's finger tightened on the trigger. "I don't need to win against the galaxy. I only need to win against you." The first shot rang out. A beam of light streaked across the room. The hunters dove for cover. The girl gasped, her eyes wide with terror. The human moved quickly, firing again, forcing them back, but he knew he could not fight forever. More would come. This was only the beginning. He grabbed the girl, lifting her into his arms once more. She clung to him weakly, her small hands gripping his shirt. He ran through the corridors, the hunters chasing close behind. Blaster fire lit the darkness, sparks showering from the walls. The station's alarms blared again, voices shouted over comms. The entire lower deck knew what was happening now. The human pushed forward, heart pounding. Every turn was a risk, every step a gamble. The girl coughed, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "They will never stop, you should leave me." The human shook his head, his voice fierce. "Listen to me, I will never leave you, do you understand? Never." Her eyes filled with tears. She pressed her face against his chest. For the first time in her short life, she believed someone meant those words. He ducked into a side passage, forcing open an old maintenance hatch. Inside, the tunnels were narrow, lit only by faint emergency lights. He crawled with her, held tightly, the sound of hunters fading behind them, but even in the darkness there was no safety. His mind raced, where can I go? Who can I trust? Every world in this sector was ruled by cold laws. No alien government cared for a dying child. No doctor would risk their reputation on a life already abandoned. He was alone, truly alone. Yet, when he looked down at her, her pale face resting against him, he felt no regret. The weight of her life in his arms gave him strength. A fire burned in his heart, brighter than fear, stronger than doubt. Hours passed as he moved through the hidden tunnels. At last he reached a forgotten hangar. Rusted ships rested under dust and silence. Most were broken, but one small freighter hummed faintly with power. It was old, barely fit for flight, but it was enough. He placed the girl gently on the seat, covering her with a blanket. Then he worked quickly, his hands moving across the controls. The engines roared weakly. The ship shuddered. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lights flickered alive. The hunters burst into the hangar. Their weapons glowed, their voices cold. "You cannot run, human. Hand her over." The human's jaw tightened. His eyes burned with fury. "You don't understand. I would rather burn with her than hand her to you." He slammed the controls. The freighter lifted shakily. The hunters fired, beams striking the hull. But the ship groaned forward, engines screaming, and with one final push, it broke free into the stars. The girl stirred, her eyes opening slightly. She looked out the window, the stars stretching endlessly. Her lips curved into a faint smile. "It's beautiful," she whispered. The human looked at her, his voice soft. "Yes, it is, and you will live to see more." But even as they escaped, he knew the truth. The galaxy was vast, but its reach was long. The hunters would not give up. The doctors would not forgive. From this moment on, they were fugitives. Still, he felt no fear, only determination. He looked at her, her fragile body resting against the seat, and whispered a vow only she could hear. "As long as I breathe, I will protect you. No matter who hunts us, no matter how far we must run, you are not alone." She closed her eyes, her small hand reaching weakly to hold his, and though danger chased them through the stars, in that moment she felt safe. For the first time, the galaxy seemed less cold, because one human had chosen to fight against it all, and the hunters, though left behind, swore vengeance. The chase was far from over. The galaxy had declared her life worthless, but the human had made his choice. He would prove them all wrong. The old freighter shook as it drifted through space. Its engines groaned, sparks bursting from tired wires. The human worked quickly at the controls, trying to steady the ship beside him. The alien girl rested under a blanket, her small breaths weak but steady. For a brief moment there was quiet. Stars stretched across the window, endless and beautiful. But the human knew peace never lasted. His instincts were sharp, honed by battles across the galaxy. He could feel it. The hunters were not far behind, and he was right. The radar blinked. A cluster of ships appeared, sleek and fast. Hunters. Their lights cut through the darkness, their weapons armed. A cold voice came through the comm. "You cannot run forever, human. Hand over the girl. This is your last chance." The human stared at the screen. His jaw tightened. He turned his head toward the girl. She looked at him with tired eyes, fear flickering inside them. Her lips trembled. "They will kill you." He knelt beside her, taking her hand gently, his voice calm but strong. Listen to me, I will not let them take you, not while I stand. Do you believe me? Her eyes filled with tears, yet she nodded. Trusting him completely, the human stood tall again. He strapped the blaster to his side and adjusted the ship's shields. He knew he could not outfly them. His freighter was too old, too slow. The only choice left was to fight. The hunter's ships circled like predators. Firing warning shots, the freighter rocked under the impact. Sparks rained inside the cockpit. But the human's eyes never wavered. This ends here, he whispered to himself. He angled the freighter down toward a rocky moon. The ship screamed in protest as it entered the thin atmosphere. Fire streaked across the hull. The girl gasped, clutching the seat. But the human stayed firm. His plan was simple. Land and face them. The freighter slammed into the barren surface, skidding across dust and stone. Metal screeched, parts snapped. Finally, the ship came to a stop, smoke rising from its frame. The girl coughed. Weak and afraid. We can't win. The human placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes burning with fire. We don't need to win against them all, we only need to survive, and I will make sure you do. The hatch blew open with a hiss. The hunters stepped out of their ships, armored and armed. Their visors glowed red in the darkness. Their leader raised his weapon, his voice echoing, "Step aside, human, do this the easy way, give us the girl." The human stepped forward, standing tall despite the dust and blood on his face, his blaster ready, his voice cut through the cold. "Air, you will not touch her." The hunters spread out, surrounding him. Their laughter was cruel. "One man against us all, you will die here." The human fired first, his blaster roared. The first hunter fell with a burning hole in his chest. Chaos erupted. Beams of light filled the air. Rocks shattered under the blasts. He moved fast, using the terrain for cover, firing with precision. His body burned with pain as a shot grazed his arm, but he kept fighting. He fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. The girl watched from the ship. Her heart pounded. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body was too weak. All she could do was pray he would survive. Her hands shook as she pressed them together, whispering, "Please don't die, please." The hunters pressed harder, their numbers greater, their weapons stronger. The human staggered, blood dripping down his side, his vision blurred. Yet, he refused to fall. He thought of her eyes, of her trust, of his vow. For her, he growled, pulling the trigger again and again. Another hunter fell. Another was wounded, but more came, surrounding him tighter. Blasts scorched the ground around him. He stumbled, his knees hitting the dust. His strength fading, the leader stepped forward, raising his weapon to strike. His cold voice echoed, "It is over, human, you fought hard, but you are finished." The girl's heart broke at the sight. Tears streamed down her face. She tried to stand, her body shaking. Something deep within her stirred, a spark hidden in her blood, a power she never knew she had. Her eyes glowed faintly, her small body trembling as strange energy coursed through her veins. She lifted her hand weakly, and the air around her shimmered. A wave of force exploded outward. The hunters staggered back, weapons flying from their hands. The ground itself cracked under the pressure. The human looked up in shock, his eyes wide. "Little one," he whispered. The girl stood in the doorway of the ship, her fragile form glowing with light. Her voice shook but carried strength. "You will not hurt him. You will not take me." The hunters hesitated. Their visors flickered. Fear crept into their movements. This was no ordinary child. The human forced himself to his feet, pain burning through his body. He stood beside her, blaster still in hand, his voice firm. "We stand together." The hunters growled, but their confidence faltered. Their leader raised his weapon again, yet his hands shook. The girl's eyes blazed brighter, and the ground beneath him split. The human fired one last shot. The leader fell, his body crashing into the dust. The rest of the hunters fled into the darkness, their courage broken. Silence fell. The human dropped to one knee, his body bleeding, his breath ragged. He looked at her with pride. "You saved us." She stumbled forward, kneeling beside him, her hands glowing faintly as they touched his wounds. Energy poured from her, knitting flesh, sealing cuts. His pain faded. She whispered through tears, "You gave me hope. Now I give you life." The human's vision cleared. His strength slowly returned. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close, his voice raw but steady. You are more than they ever knew. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are the future. She wept softly, but in her tears was no despair, only joy. Together under the endless stars of the barren moon, they stood, wounded but alive, hunted but unbroken. For the first time the galaxy had seen the truth. One human and one fragile girl could defy it all, and their fight was not over. It had only just begun. The battlefield was silent after the hunters fled. The barren moon lay still under the endless stars. The human knelt on the rocky ground, his arms still bleeding, his body trembling from exhaustion. Beside him, the alien girl stood, her small frame glowing faintly with the last traces of power she had released. Her eyes looked at him, full of worry. You are hurt again, she whispered. He smiled faintly, though his lips were pale. I have been hurt before, but this time I am not alone. She reached out, placing her fragile hands on his wounds. The glow returned, softer this time. Energy flowed into him. Knitting skin and sealing pain, he watched her in awe. This power hidden within her was not a weapon of destruction as the galaxy believed. It was a gift of healing. When she finished, she collapsed into his arms, weak but alive. He held her close, whispering, You saved me, little one. You saved us both. Her voice shook as she answered, You saved me first. When everyone left me, you stayed. Tears filled his eyes. He was not a man who cried often, but her words struck deep. In that moment, he realized something. This was no longer just about saving one child. This was about proving something greater, that life had value, that hope could survive even in the coldest corners of the galaxy. But danger was not over. The hunters would return, and the doctors, the governments, the rulers of distant stars. They would not forgive this rebellion. They would hunt her again. They would hunt him again. The human looked at the broken freighter, smoke still rising from its hull. It would not fly far. They were stranded on the moon. For now, they had a moment of peace, but peace was fragile. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide with both fear and determination. What will we do now? He lifted her chin gently, meeting her gaze. We live. We fight. We show them that their laws are wrong. You are not a burden. You are not a mistake. You are hope. She blinked, tears shining in her eyes. Hope, she whispered softly, as if the word was new and precious. The human stood slowly, helping her rise. Together, they looked out at the stars. The galaxy stretched endless and cruel, yet also full of possibilities. Days passed on the barren moon. The human repaired what he could of the freighter, working with broken tools and pure determination. The girl helped where she could, though her body was still weak. Sometimes she used her faint healing glow to soothe his wounds. Sometimes she simply sat beside him, telling him small stories of her lost home. Each day, their bond grew stronger. She no longer looked at herself as worthless, and he no longer felt like a lone wanderer in a cold galaxy. But the galaxy had not forgotten them. A broadcast reached nearby worlds, spreading whispers of what had happened. A human had stolen a dying alien child and survived against hunters. And the child, thought useless, had revealed a hidden power. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a threat. Leaders argued in secret chambers. Doctors denied their failure. Hunters sharpened their blades for revenge. But among ordinary people, a different story spread. A story of kindness, of courage, of a human who refused to give up when everyone else did. On the barren moon, the girl asked him one night as they sat under the stars, Why do you fight so much for me? Why not save yourself? He looked at her with gentle eyes, his voice quiet yet strong. Because saving you is saving myself. Because no one should be left to die forgotten. Not you. Not anyone. If I can protect even one life, then my life has meaning. Her small hand reached for his, holding it tightly. Her voice trembled but was filled with strength. Then I will stay with you. I will not be afraid anymore. He squeezed her hand, smiling softly. Together then, always. At dawn, the freighter roared to life once more, damaged but flying. The human guided it into the stars. The girl sat beside him, her eyes full of wonder as she watched the galaxy open before her. They were fugitives now, hunted by governments, feared by doctors, chased by hunters. But none of that mattered, because they had each other. And as their ship drifted into the endless night, the girl whispered words that would echo across stars. You gave me hope when I had none. Now I will give hope to others. We will show them all. The human nodded, his gaze firm as the stars reflected in his eyes. Yes, little one. Together we will show the galaxy that no life is worthless. Together we will change it. And somewhere in the vastness, unseen by them, the story had already begun to spread. A story of a dying alien girl and the human who refused to abandon her. A story that would ignite whispers of rebellion. A story that would remind countless souls across the galaxy of something they had forgotten, that even in the darkest void, hope can be born. And so, their journey did not end on that moon, nor in that broken freighter. It was only the beginning. A beginning that would change two lives and perhaps in time, the fate of two worlds.